Her brother didn't know I was listening when he said, "I still can't believe you married this loser. Dad's right, you need to divorce him before you're stuck forever." And she answered him like it was no big deal, said, "Already on it. My lawyer says we can probably take half of his business too." I came back in holding those chairs like nothing had happened, and kept on smiling like the perfect host. 3 days later, my WhatsApp was blowing up, 47 messages, all of them panicked, all of them begging. Something about Samantha had felt off the week before that dinner, and I don't mean the usual stress she gets from work or the way she snaps when I leave my boots in the hall. No, this was something else, something colder, more calculated. She kept glancing at her phone like she was waiting for a bomb to go off, closed browser tabs the second I walked past her laptop, and started taking her calls in a different room. When you've been with someone for 7 years, you start to notice the small shifts, like how a carpenter knows when a wall is crooked just by eyeballing it. I never pictured myself writing one of these posts. I've never been the type to spill my personal life online. But right now it's 3 a.m., I've got a glass of whiskey in my hand, and my whole life feels like it fell apart in the span of 3 days. I need to let this out somewhere, and I guess that means you folks on the internet are getting front row seats to the disaster. Let me give you a little context. My name's Ethan, I'm 34. I dropped out of community college and built my construction company from the ground up, starting with nothing but an old pickup and a whole lot of grit. These days I've got 5 crews out running jobs across the county. It's not some huge empire, but it pays well and keeps things comfortable. Samantha, my wife, she's 32. We've been married for 7 years now. While I was working every hour I could find to grow my business, I also put her through law school, paid for her tuition, her rent, everything. Her family's the upper middle class type. The kind that never quite hid the fact that I wasn't who they'd imagined their daughter ending up with. Her dad, Gerald, works as a financial advisor. Her mom, Linda, is in real estate. And her brother, Brian, walks around like his business degree makes him some kind of Wall Street genius. From the beginning, I knew they thought Samantha could do better than me. They never held back their little jabs about my small business, or their not-so-subtle hints about when I planned to go back to school. But Samantha always stood up for me, or at least, that's what I believed. Last Saturday was our annual spring dinner, something Samantha insisted on doing every year to showcase our house to her family. I spent the whole morning getting things ready, cleaning up the yard, pressure washing the deck, helping in the kitchen. Everything needed to be flawless. That's how it always was when her folks came over. I'd been up since 6, getting the smoker going for the brisket I'd been dry aging all week. Samantha was wound tighter than usual, snapping at me over small stuff, but I figured it was just nerves about hosting. Everyone rolled in around 4, her parents, Brian and his wife, and her younger sister Chloe, who's still in grad school. The second her mom walked in, she started picking apart our living room like she was on some HGTV show, while her dad launched into a line of questions about my business that felt less curious and more like he was hoping I'd admit to failure. By 6 o'clock, everything was ready. I'd set the table with our good wedding china, stuff we almost never use, and that's when I noticed we were short a couple chairs. So I slipped out to the garage to grab 2 more. But as I rounded the side of the house, I caught voices, just around the corner. Samantha and Brian were out by the azalea bushes, sharing a cigarette, which was odd since she supposedly quit smoking 3 years ago. I was about to say something when I heard my name. And I stopped cold. Brian was going on about how he still couldn't wrap his head around why she married me, and how their dad had been right all along. He said she needed to leave me before kids came into the picture and locked her in. What she said next felt like someone drove a truck straight through my chest. She told him she was already in the middle of the process, and her lawyer believed they could go after half of what I'd built. I stood there, frozen, listening as they laughed, talking like I was some clueless idiot they'd outsmarted. They mentioned some guy named Logan being a better match for her, and how she'd wasted her best years playing house with me while I was off, pretending to be a contractor. Ever have one of those moments where everything you thought you knew flips upside down? 7 years of marriage, all those nights I stayed up helping her study, all the vacations we passed up so she could buy her books, the side gigs I worked just to pay off her loans. Suddenly, none of it looked the same. But I didn't storm in there. Didn't yell. Didn't call her out. Something inside me just froze over. I backed away quietly, went into the garage, grabbed the chairs, and forced myself to breathe. 3 deep breaths. Then I pasted on the most convincing smile I've ever faked. As I came back through the hallway, I caught my reflection in the mirror. I looked like I always did. But inside? I was scorched earth. The rest of the night played out like some kind of twisted play. I poured wine. Carved the brisket. Laughed at her dad's stupid stories. And across the table sat my wife, this stranger, pretending everything was fine. I kept staring at her, trying to find the woman I thought I married. Had she always looked at me like that, with that hint of disgust? Or was I just seeing it now? When her mom complimented the food and asked how I made it, it nearly broke me. 7 years of meals and hosting, and now she's curious. I walked her through the dry aging process like I was reading from a manual, all while my head was screaming. At one point, Chloe gave me a strange look, like she was piecing something together. She's the only one in that family who's ever felt human. I couldn't help but wonder, did she already know? After dessert, Brian stood up and made a toast, something about family and upcoming changes, and then he looked straight at Samantha with this smug little grin. I lifted my glass and drank, silently imagining how good it'd feel to shatter that fancy stemware against his jaw. They all finally left around 11. Samantha started humming as she cleaned up, like she hadn't just set fire to our entire life. I told her I'd handle the dishes, that she should head to bed and rest. She kissed my cheek and told me I was such a good husband. I barely kept from throwing up. The nerve of that woman. Once she was asleep, I checked her laptop. It was password protected now, which was new, but I knew her patterns. Got in on the 3rd try. Turns out, she'd been emailing her lawyer for the last 3 months. The whole plan was to wait until she locked down a partnership at her firm, using my income to help boost her status, and then dump me once everything was set. There were spreadsheets breaking down everything, my business assets, our shared accounts, even a full timeline for when the divorce would hit. And then I saw it, a transfer record showing she'd been quietly moving money into a separate account for months, always keeping the amounts just below the threshold that would trigger alerts. Clever. The kind of clever you pay a lawyer to teach you. When I checked our joint savings, my stomach dropped. 20 grand, gone. That was the money I'd been stacking for a business expansion. Our future, or so I thought. Then I stumbled on messages with someone listed only as L. So Logan wasn't just waiting in the wings, he was already filling my shoes. The text stretched back half a year. 6 goddamn months. I didn't sleep that night. Or the one after. Come Monday, I called in sick, first time in 3 years, and met with a divorce attorney while Samantha was at work. His name was Rob, a recommendation from a buddy. I laid it all out, every screenshot, every bit of what I knew. Rob didn't sugarcoat it. He said that since my business had grown significantly during our marriage, she might be entitled to half of its value, despite never once lifting a finger to help. Even though I built it from the dirt up while paying her way through law school. When he showed me what the settlement could look like, I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Everything I'd poured myself into, everything I'd given up, it was all at risk. I looked at him and asked, so that's it? I just roll over and take it? He started explaining options, talking about settling things amicably, minimizing fallout. But I was already gone. Checked out. Something deep inside me had snapped. That night, Samantha asked how I was feeling. She brought home soup and acted like she cared. I went with it. Told her I was just tired. Probably catching something. She said maybe I should see a doctor. The act was impressive, almost believable. I nodded, thanked her, even told her I loved her. She said it back without blinking. Just tossed those 3 hollow words at me like they still meant something, while secretly setting up my financial execution behind the scenes. I watched her sit beside me on the couch, scrolling through Instagram like nothing was wrong. She even liked a photo of us from last Christmas that her sister had posted. The caption said, #couplegoals. I nearly laughed in her face. Living with her felt like sharing space with a stranger wearing a familiar mask. Every smile, every word, it was all part of a script. Had she always been this way? Had I just not seen it? Or had she turned into someone else? At this point, does it even make a difference? Now, I've never thought of myself as a petty or vindictive guy. When subcontractors pull shady moves, I just cut them loose. When clients fall behind on payments, I try to work it out. But this wasn't business. This was personal. This was my whole damn life. As I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling while she slept beside me, probably dreaming about shopping for throw pillows with Logan, something inside me shifted. It wasn't rage. It was something colder. Clearer. Focused. Samantha and her family? They never took me seriously. To them, I was just a guy with rough hands and no degree. They never realized how much brains it takes to build something real from nothing. How much patience. How much strategy. The next morning, I picked up the phone. Started calling my bank, my business partner, and a few trusted clients. By lunch, I had the bones of a plan. By dinner, I knew exactly what my next steps were. If Samantha wanted a fight, fine. But she was showing up with a butter knife to a chainsaw battle. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about letting her, and her smug little family, see exactly who they underestimated. For 7 years, they looked at me like I was beneath them. Now they're about to get a lesson in what happens when you push the wrong guy too far. So here I am, just 3 days after that dinner party, mapping out the blueprint for total demolition. Like any construction job worth doing, the groundwork comes first. Tomorrow, the real fun begins. Samantha thinks she's got all the angles covered. She doesn't have a clue what's coming. And neither does her precious family. Or Logan, whoever the hell he thinks he is. I stood by her side for 7 years, backing every dream she had. Now I get to watch the whole thing fall apart. In real time. Update: first off, I didn't expect that wave of support on the last post. Seriously, thank you. To everyone asking if I've cooled off or found some peace. Nope. Still angry. Still moving forward. Just with a sharper plan now. Here's what I've learned: when you build something with your own 2 hands, rushing only guarantees mistakes you'll have to fix later. Revenge works the same way. It needs a solid foundation. The morning after I posted, Samantha went off to work like it was just another Tuesday. She kissed me on the way out, reminded me to call the plumber about the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom, and asked if I could swing by the dry cleaner. It felt like watching someone stroll through a minefield they set themselves, completely unaware of what was about to explode. The moment her car pulled away, I got to work. Top priority: locking down my business. I called my accountant and asked to meet, somewhere private. We picked the coffee shop down the street from my office. No way was I talking about this in front of employees or over a phone line. Here's the truth: when you're trying to grow a company and support someone through school, sometimes you make compromises. Not everything gets documented perfectly. Sometimes you're too tired after a 14-hour shift to worry about the fine print. Samantha knew all that. She even helped with our early tax returns when we couldn't afford a pro. That coffee shop meeting? It opened my eyes. My accountant, let's call him Derek, looked exhausted. Turns out Samantha had already reached out to him, asking all these casual questions about how business valuation works, what documents show ownership, that kind of thing. Said she was helping prep for an upcoming investor pitch. Derek, not knowing what she was really doing, shared a few basics, but something about it didn't sit right with him. So he made a mental note to flag it. When I told him what was actually going on, he went pale. "Ethan, I've got to show you something," he said, pulling out his tablet. He opened up documents showing transactions from the last few years. Highlighted entries stood out like red flags. "There's stuff here that doesn't line up," he said. Turns out, Samantha wasn't just scheming a quiet divorce. She was building a fake trail, making it look like I'd been sloppy with money. Small timing gaps on transfers, inconsistent invoice numbers, weird account shifts. Nothing flat out illegal, yet. She wasn't careless, but she was clever enough to stir up just enough doubt to cause trouble in court. Just enough to justify bringing in a forensic accountant, someone who'd charge a fortune, spend months picking through clean records, and still come up empty, but stall the whole process in the meantime. Derek and I sat for nearly 3 hours, sorting everything properly, creating clean, traceable records showing that every transaction was above board. We fast-tracked supplier payments, closed out equipment loans, and clearly documented that Samantha had never been involved in any part of the business. In the middle of all this, I got a text from Chloe, Samantha's sister. That was odd. We've always gotten along well, but we hardly ever text one-on-one. She asked if we could meet for coffee soon. Said she had something important to discuss. I told her Saturday morning would work, and I've been wondering ever since what she needs to tell me. Next stop was the bank. There was something Brian, Samantha's brother, had said during that family dinner that had been stuck in my head. Something about their parents helping her when the time comes. I had a gut feeling. And in construction, trusting your gut can save everything. At the bank, I spoke with our advisor and asked a few pointed questions. And just like that, my suspicion was confirmed. Samantha had applied for a home equity line of credit against our house 2 weeks ago. The same house that's mostly in my name, since I covered the down payment with savings from before our marriage. The one I spent months renovating by hand, adding close to $100,000 in value. Technically, I was still listed as a required co-signer, but the paperwork was already moving. One more week and she would have had access to nearly $300,000 in cash, and I'd have been legally responsible for part of it. The advisor looked pretty uncomfortable when I told him I hadn't approved anything. After showing him my ID and our marriage certificate, I was able to cancel the application in time. Then I transferred half of our joint savings into my personal account, the exact amount I'd contributed. Was it a little petty? Maybe. But compared to what she had planned, it was pretty mild. When I got home, I did something I'm not exactly proud of. But I was running out of options. I installed a few discrete audio recorders in the living room and bedroom. Completely legal in our state, since it's my home too. Still, I knew it wasn't exactly the high road. I also set up a small camera in the home office, aimed toward her desk, nothing hidden, just positioned right. Then I took the dog for a casual walk around the block. Waved to the neighbors. Threw a ball for the Jenkins kid. Scooped up after the dog like nothing was going on. Meanwhile, in the back of my mind, I was putting together the blueprint for ending my marriage from the inside out. Just your average Tuesday. That night at dinner, Samantha seemed off, glued to her phone, barely present. When I asked how her day went, her answers were vague, short. Then her phone buzzed again, and I caught the name on the screen before she flipped it face down. Logan. Who's Logan? I asked casually, reaching for more pasta like I wasn't suspicious at all. Her fork hovered mid-air for a moment. Oh, new client at work, she said. Urgent case. Then came that quick move, face down on the table. That half-second hesitation said more than she realized. When you've spent 7 years with someone, you notice these things. Must be serious if he's messaging you during dinner, I said, still playing the relaxed, easygoing husband. She forced a smile. You know how some people are. No respect for work-life balance. The irony almost made me choke on my garlic bread. After dinner, she said she had some work to finish and headed to the home office. I made a little noise cleaning up, just enough to let her think I was distracted, then quietly moved down the hall. She'd left the office door slightly open. Just enough. I stood there listening, recognizing her tone instantly. Not her work voice. Not her family voice. Something softer. More personal. You can't just call whenever you want. No, he doesn't suspect anything. Just wait. Yes, I miss you too. Each sentence hit like a cold wave across my chest. Every word pushed me closer to the edge. I wanted to barge in. Confront her. Tear down the whole performance right there. But doing that would have ruined the plan. So I walked away. Back to the kitchen. Turned on the faucet. Made noise like I was doing dishes while my brain was already drawing up the next step. Here's what most people don't understand about building. It's not just about tools and materials. Timing matters. Pour the concrete too soon after rain. It won't cure right. Rush the framing? The structure falls apart. Revenge, done right, is no different. It needs time to set. On Wednesday morning, I accidentally left some blank divorce forms on my nightstand. Nothing filled in. Just the basic county paperwork. When I got out of the shower, the stack was in a different position. She'd seen them. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. At work that day, I started preparing. I didn't call in favors for cash. I asked for information. It didn't take long to learn Logan wasn't just some client. He was Brian's close friend from college. Came from the same background as Samantha's family, the polished, privileged kind. Exactly the type her parents always imagined her ending up with. And here's the kicker, he'd been at family events I missed over the years because I was too busy working. Birthday parties. A ski trip. Even a cruise I skipped to finish a project that helped solidify my business. Through someone we both knew, I found out Samantha and Logan had dated briefly back in college. Suddenly everything made more sense. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment betrayal. It had roots. It wasn't just about stepping out, it was a long-term play. As I pieced that together, I opened up a new spreadsheet. I listed every dollar I'd spent supporting Samantha through law school. Tuition. Books. Rent. The laptop I gave her when she graduated. The prep course for the bar exam. Interview outfits. Even the rides home late at night when I didn't want her taking the subway alone. The total? $154,632. And that's not even counting the growth I missed out on if I'd invested all that into my business. That night, something strange happened. She initiated intimacy. First time in months. The timing almost made me laugh. Was this part of the plan too? Keep me distracted while setting things up behind the scenes? I went along with it. Played the role. But emotionally? I felt nothing. Just went through the motions while she acted like things were normal. Afterward, while she slept beside me, I sat in the dark, staring up at the ceiling fan, watching the blades turn in slow, steady circles. And all the while, one thought kept spinning in my head, over and over. How long had our marriage been built on fiction? Was it always a means to an end for her? Just a stepping stone on her way somewhere else? Thursday morning was my coffee meetup with Chloe. I got there early, scrolling through Reddit while I waited. The support from internet strangers was still pouring in. Some offered advice I hadn't even thought of. Others shared their own stories, some even messier than mine. Somehow, hearing all that made me feel less alone. When Chloe arrived, she looked a little uneasy. She's always stood out in that family, more grounded, less concerned with appearances. She ordered one of those fancy coffee drinks and quietly nibbled at a muffin while making small talk. Then she took a breath and got to the point. What she told me confirmed everything I already suspected. She'd known about Samantha and Logan for a while. Had caught them together at the family lake house a few months back, the same weekend I missed because of an emergency call at a job site. She had confronted Samantha, who claimed it was a one-time mistake. But that wasn't the truth. Chloe said Samantha got tipsy at another dinner I'd also missed and let the whole story spill. The plan was to stay married until she made partner, then move on to Logan and take half of everything I had built. Chloe told me all this because she couldn't keep it in anymore. She said she'd always liked me. Thought I brought out the best in her sister. Never understood why their family treated me like I didn't belong. I thanked her for being honest, careful not to let on that I already knew most of it. Asked her to keep our chat between us. She nodded, clearly relieved, and hugged me before leaving. Whispered that she was sorry. That moment felt like the first real human connection I'd had in days. Thursday night, I set the next part of my plan in motion. I faked a work emergency and called Samantha, telling her I needed everyone, especially her and her family, for an urgent meeting. A big client was supposedly about to pull out. Major financial trouble. She hesitated. Said she had other plans. So I pushed harder. Let my voice crack a little. Told her I was scared of losing everything we'd built together. She caved. Agreed to host a family dinner the next night. Said she'd call her parents and Brian. Perfect. Friday morning, I prepped everything. I set the table with the usual good dishes. Hid a folder beside my seat. Loaded all my evidence, screenshots, audio clips, financial records, onto a tablet. I even picked up her favorite dessert from that bakery across town. Let her think things were normal. At work, I sat down with my business partner, told him the truth. He was shocked, but stood by me. We'd known each other since high school, and he understood just how much I'd given to support Samantha's path. By the time I got home, Samantha was already setting the table again, just like that spring dinner. Same plates. Same setting. But this was a different story. She looked nervous. Kept glancing at her phone. I asked if everyone was confirmed. She nodded, said her parents were bringing wine. Brian and his wife would be there. I suggested inviting Chloe, too. Samantha seemed surprised but agreed, texting her sister while I watched. Everyone was coming. The full cast. As I headed upstairs to change, Samantha called after me, asking what the client issue was, exactly. I told her I'd explain it all during dinner. Wanted everyone to hear it at the same time. Under the hot water of the shower, I mentally rehearsed every word. Every moment. The order I'd reveal everything for the biggest effect. It felt like prepping for the most twisted business presentation I'd ever give. I put on the clothes Samantha always said made me look sharp, dark jeans, a blue button-up, leather shoes. My final costume as the loyal, loving husband. Downstairs, I could hear her on the phone, talking quietly. Thanks to the recorder in the living room, I'd be able to hear it later if needed. But honestly, I already knew who she was speaking to, and what she was saying. Let her think she still had the upper hand. Let her assure Logan everything was going according to plan. Let her believe, for just a few more hours, that she had control. The doorbell rang. She jumped, ended her call in a hurry. Her parents arrived first. Her dad handed me an expensive bottle of wine, already asking about the client crisis, with a look that felt more smug than concerned. Then came Brian and his wife, followed shortly by Chloe, who avoided my eyes as she walked in. Everyone was here. Every piece in place. As we settled into the dining room, Samantha touched my arm and asked if I was okay. Her voice had that tender tone I used to believe in. For a brief second, I almost doubted everything. Almost wondered if maybe I'd blown things out of proportion. Then her phone buzzed again. I saw Logan's name flash on the screen before she silenced it, and just like that, any remaining doubt vanished. I took my seat at the head of the table, with the folder beside me. Samantha to my right. Her father to my left. It was a perfect mirror of that spring dinner when I first heard the truth. Only this time, I was the one holding the secrets. As her mom asked about the wine options, I noticed Chloe giving me a strange look, half anxious, half bracing herself. She knew something was coming. Just not what. I stood up and raised my glass. Everyone quieted, expecting a business update. I looked at each of them, saved Samantha for last. Before we get into tonight's big discussion, I said, holding my glass, I'd like to start with a toast. They all lifted theirs. To family, to loyalty, and to finally seeing things for what they really are. They smiled awkwardly. Confused. That was just the beginning. They had no clue what was coming next. And neither did Samantha. Final update, I've been sitting here for an hour, just watching the message count rise on my phone. The dog adjusted faster than I did. Animals can always sense when something's off in a home. On the third morning, I finally powered my phone back on. It started buzzing right away, 47 WhatsApp messages from Samantha. They ranged from furious to desperate. The first few were all caps, pure anger. How could you do this? You ruined everything. Then they shifted tone. Ethan, please. We need to talk. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. By message 30, she was pleading. I'll start therapy. I'll cut off my family. Just talk to me. Message 45 said only one thing. I'm sorry. The last two came at 3:16 a.m. I told Logan everything, about the money, the plan. He said we should still be together. Then. He broke it off. Said he's working things out with Melissa. I have no one now. I read through them in silence. No anger. No satisfaction. Just, exhaustion. It felt like wrapping up a job you poured everything into, only to know the client never truly saw the work. As I scrolled, another message popped up. Ethan, I know you're reading these. Just tell me what you want, money? The house? I'll sign whatever. That told me all I needed to know. She still didn't understand. It was never about the money. It was about being lied to. Years of loyalty treated like a placeholder. A future we built, tossed away. I finally replied. I've already sent the divorce papers to your office. I just want this over. She responded instantly. Can we meet? Just to talk. Before I could say anything, my phone rang. It was Rob, my lawyer. Melissa, Logan's wife, had reached out to him. After I showed her the evidence, she dug deeper. Turns out, Logan had a pattern: other women, other lies. She wanted to compare notes for our respective divorces. As Rob spoke, I looked around my nearly empty apartment. Mattress on the floor. Half-unpacked boxes. The dog watching me from the corner. This wasn't how I pictured life at 34. Starting over again. But sometimes you have to tear down what's cracked beyond repair. I told Rob I'd meet Melissa for coffee. Not for anything romantic. Just because there's strength in shared experience. After the call, I sent Samantha one final message. There's nothing left to talk about. Please direct all communication through our lawyers. Then I blocked her number. That afternoon, I took the dog for a long hike. Midway through, my phone buzzed again, this time from Chloe. Heard you moved out. Samantha's staying with our parents. Dad's furious. Mom's finally asking real questions. Think the perfect daughter image is starting to crack. I replied. Thanks for letting me know. Hope you're doing okay. She answered. I am. Actually, better than okay. I told them I'm leaving the program they pushed me into. Going after what I want instead. I guess your courage rubbed off. As the sun dipped below the trees, I watched my dog explore, tail wagging without a care. 7 years behind me. Countless hours of effort. A future planned, and erased. But also, freedom. Truth. A clean slate. As I sat there, my phone buzzed again. Melissa had confirmed our coffee meetup. She'd also sent me a link to a support group for people dealing with financially manipulative divorces. Apparently, this kind of thing is more common than I thought. I slipped my phone into my pocket and whistled for the dog. Time to head home. Make dinner. Maybe unpack one more box. Small steps. One day at a time. Like any solid build, the first thing you lay down is the foundation. And this time, I'm making sure it's solid.